Okay, we're going to look at multiplication and division word problems so that you know what we do in class so that you can help your children if they struggle with these skills. We're first going to look at division, and this is the format that I usually give the students in class so they know that like this number set, we'll plug in those numbers to the problem first, and then you can use these two as practice problems with your children at home. So they can like pause it, you can pause the video, they can work it out, or you can just rewrite it, or however you need. So in a division word problem, we always want to read the problem. And if they don't understand it the first time, I tell them to visualize and read it again. So this would be Miss King bought, in this first case, 36 mini erasers from Target. She wants to pass out the erasers fairly to 4 students, so they each get the same amount. How many erasers will each child get? So I always ask a couple questions if they're really struggling, like how many, like what's the total? So we always want to say, how many erasers do we have? In this case, our total is 36, and then I'll ask them, okay, how many people are going to get erasers? They say 4, so we know that's how many groups we have. So our little thing that we always use is the total divided by, and then in this case, what we know is the number of students, so that's going to be the number of groups equals the number in each group. So this is displayed in my classroom, and they are usually pretty good at identifying like how many do we have, which is 36, and then do we know the number of groups, or do we know how many is in each group? So that's where I always tell them to start. This is going to give them their division equation. And with every division equation, we also want them to write a multiplication equation. So the trick to our multiplication equation is always number of groups first, multiplied by the number in each group, gives us the total. So in this case, we know the total, and the total is 36. So we're going to divide that by the number of groups, which is 4 students, to get our answer, which I'm going to use as x, or they can use any unknown variable. They can also use a box, any other letter, question mark. They know. We've done that many times. So this is going to be their division equation. And then for their multiplication equation, I'll ask them, do we know the number of groups, or in this case, the number of students? So that's going to be 4 multiplied by, okay, how many is in each group? How many erasers does each student have? We don't know, so we're going to use an unknown variable, so I'll use a box for that example, equals how many erasers does she have to divide? 36. So that's going to be our multiplication equation. I wrote the equation first. Oftentimes, students will solve and then go back and write their equation, which is totally fine. It doesn't matter what they do first. I just like to show them how to write the equation based off of the story before we solve. Okay, so I'm going to go to a new page and show a strategy for how to work this. So we have 36 divided by 4 equals something. So they can draw 4 groups. So for each student, this is student number 1, student number 2, student number 3, student number 4. And we can say they can literally just go through and tally and like count 1, 2, 3, 4 until they get to 36. I like to encourage them to use numbers. Either way is fine. So if I said, okay, I know that they can at least have 2 erasers each. So 2, 4, 6, 8. Okay, so I'm at 8. I still have lots more. Maybe we can add 5 this time. So 5, 10, 15, 20. So we know that we had, with the 2s, we used 8 of the erasers. And whenever we added 5 to each student, we used 5, 10, 15, 20. So now that equals 28. Okay, so I still have to get to 36. So they could either choose to do 1 each again, or they could notice that they have 8 left. 36 minus 28 equals 8. And so then they could do, they could do 2 more in each box. So that would be 8 again. So 28 plus 8 equals 36. Okay, so we've used all of our erasers. So now we want to look at how many does each student have. So we know that 2 plus 2 plus 5 equals 9. So now we know that each student is going to receive 9 erasers. So then they can fill that in on their equation if they would like, but they just need to make their answer clear. 9 erasers. So then to fill in our multiplication equation, we would have 4 groups, that's the number of groups, times the number in each group, or the number that each student gets, equals 36. And then this would have been our box for our unknown. So we know that 9 is our answer. That's one strategy. Like I said, they can also just make the 4 groups and tally by ones in each group, or they could, any kind of drawing could work. Here is an example that they can use to practice. So it's the same kind of problem, just using a different story and 3 different number sets. So feel free to use that one as an example also. I'll do one more. This is a different kind of division. So the other one was called equal sharing. So how many did each group have equally? This one is an array problem. So it says Miss Mustang is putting cans on a shelf. She has, in this case, we're going to do the first one, and you can use the other 2 as practice. She has 24 cans all together. I like to ask them to find keywords. She has 24 cans all together and puts 6 cans in each row. How many rows of cans will she have? So we know that each row is going to have 6, and she only has 24 cans. So same thing, we want to do our total. You can go back before and look at our little, I'll do total divided by, and we know how many is in each row. So divided by the number in each group equals, we'll put that up there. Number in each group equals the number of groups, or in this case, the number of rows. So I'm just going to write this down here. That should be total here. Sorry, total divided by. Okay, so we know the total is 24, and she's dividing by the number in each group, which is 6, to give us how many rows or how many groups. So we'll put a box. So then students can make their rows. So we know we have how many is in each row. So we know we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So that's 1 row. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's 2 rows. So we know that 6 plus 6 equals 12. Okay, so we're not quite to 24. We need another row. So the third row is going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 in each row. So now we have 3 rows. 12 plus 6 equals 18. So we're still not to 24. Fourth row, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So, and then we know 18 plus 6 equals 24. So now we're at 24, so we need to stop and count the number of rows that we have. So 1 row, 2 rows, 3 rows, 4 rows. So we know that the number of groups equals 4. So that's one way that they can work it. They could also, I just like that way because we know for sure that 1 row is going to be made up of 6. They can also just show it as a number. So we know that I'm going to put 1 row, 1 R for row. We could do 6. 2 rows will be 6. I'll erase this. 3 rows would be 6. So they're saying, okay, we might be getting closer to 24. So 6 and 6 is 12, plus 6 equals 18. Okay, one more row, or we can have another row. 6 plus equals 24. So they can also just show me with the number. They don't have to like draw out all of the X's or dots or whatever they want to use, the cans, what's representing the cans. So that's how they would do an array problem, because we know that there's 6 in each row. How many rows do we have? Awesome. Here is, so again, I'll just leave this to end. Here's a number set that you can use to have practice, or if they specifically struggle with the array, you can use this problem and this problem as practice also. Please let me know if you have any other questions.